Hello, hello. This is Fake the Nation, and we're doing a bonus because we recorded the main episode before the election results came in, and I really wanted to talk about the election results. And to do that, I'm joined by the excellent veteran of Fake the Nation, excellent comedian, producer, and writer. He is the wonderful Benari Lee Poulton. Hey, Benari.
Hey, Negin. It's so great to be here. To do what I feel like this show is supposed to do, which is we only do optimism.
We only do optimism. By the way, I'm wearing my We're Only Doing Optimism t-shirt. By the way, much love to Fake the Nation listeners who send me photos of themselves wearing their t-shirt during election night. This is like, I just want to say, an excellent group of people who listen to this show and believe in democracy. That's just like the two,
and let's
the Venn
just
diagram.
Say, big picture here in the last, say, 36 hours.
Yeah.
A lot has happened that's been very pro-democracy, big and little d.
Yeah. So, Benari, this was a bad night for Donald Trump, but this was a great night for literally everyone else, including people who support Donald Trump. But they don't know that we have elected people who believe in being representatives for everyone in their, states and cities. Let's start with the New York City results. I read a New York Times headline this morning, which I was just like, I can't believe I'm reading this headline. The headline said, "Would New York City elect a Muslim mayor?" An emphatic yes. And that was a fun headline for me, as you know, Benari. I made a movie called The Muslims Are Coming because I have been...
Because you've been predicting that the Muslim takeover of New York City for decades now.
They've been telling me that and this is, by the way, day one of Sharia law comes in January right here in New York City. So exciting.
Very exciting.
Tell me, what are your thoughts? What are your feelings about Mamdani? And by the way, can I just point out before you start, we both came up in comedy in the mid to late 2000s, right? Where it was all terrorism talk, where we both shared stages where we heard other comedians do hack jokes about Muslims and terrorism. Right. And so I just can't believe this is feels like a crazy interesting evolution. So knowing the span of our comedic history together, what do you think?
I think, it's such a terrific sign too, because it's not just the superficial window dressing of the election. I think it's also about the coalitions that were built along the way. Democracy is the friends we made along the way. And I think what the payoff is Mamdani excited New Yorkers. He brought a youthful energy. It's a different perspective. And then the fact that he's young, that he is unapologetically Muslim, he didn't try and pretend like he wasn't Muslim or say things like, I'm a good kind, there weren't those types of things. It wasn't that type of campaign. It was a very positive campaign that was also focused on kitchen sink issues like affordability, which is the number one issue facing New Yorkers, right? They want to be able to pay rent. They want to be able to afford groceries.
And I really like that point of that, he wasn't trying to not be Muslim because, he started his campaign in a literal halal cart, making falafels and talking about halalflation, which was the price of, the rice dishes going up. And that and they had to go up because the cart owners couldn't afford to sell them for lesser than for the prices that they once had a few years ago. Yeah. So I mean, this was at every step saying no, it's okay. I also support being Muslim or whatever and having these kinds of jobs. I want to talk a little bit about the coalition that he brought together. He brought together kind of a couple of groups that Democrats have generally overlooked. The young residents of gentrifying neighborhoods in places like Bushwick and Williamsburg. And I feel like I saw that all over the place, this sort of hip set of young New Yorkers. The taxi drivers, bodega owners, and other working class South Asian immigrants in Queens and the Bronx. This is maybe an indication to Democrats nationwide that we can like sort of rethink coalition building a little bit. I don't know. What do you think?
I think there's a lot in common actually with the New York mayoral race, but also the races that Democrats won in New Jersey and in Virginia, because they spoke to the people who live in those places. Those were locally run campaigns that were catered to, shocker, the constituents, the people who were actually going to have to live in the places where they were making their decisions. And so I think that the real lesson here is that it's not one size fits all. I love this idea of hyper-local, hyper-specific types of candidates for their areas that work at the time. These things go through cycles as well. And we're also seeing the normal cycle actually play itself out. I know people are very surprised to hear this because it seems like we live in such extreme times that are breaking norms. But when you look at the cycles themselves are very normal. So the Democrats are actually reaping the benefits of the cycle and then overperforming, because Democrats have actually been overperforming in all of these elections, even the ones they were supposed to lose or had lost.
Yes, I mean, Benari, this is an excellent point. My smart friend is this one size does not fit all point, because I also feel like everyone's like, well, that's it. The Democratic Party is just a bunch of socialists now. And it's like, no, that's not what's happening. In New York City, we have a DSA candidate who, by the way, has taken meetings with billionaires. It's not a big deal. He's a mayor for all. He's emphasized that many times. He's also
going to have to deal with them in New York City.
Yes, and he also does not want to preside over a failed economy. That would be stupid, right?
No, and he's going to need to work with the NYPD and make sure that the safety of the city and the safety of the citizens are paramount. But also he has a benefit of, it's got one of the largest budgets of a city in the country.
Yes.
And there is some autonomy. And so there's some very real things that his administration can do for the city. He also has the benefit of, he's never going to be a national political figure. He can't run for president. So it's to his benefit to put all that focus and attention on just being the best mayor he can be for New York City.
Yeah, and also billionaires, calm down, because he does have some autonomy, but he also has mostly no autonomy because he is
just
hamstrung. He's just a mayor, and he is hamstrung by Albany, right?
Right.
And he has to work with the city council. And I mean, there's just like many, many, many checks and balances on this dude's authority. So like everyone needs to relax. But again, going back to the Jersey and Virginia thing, a couple of interesting points about Jersey. Mikey Sherrill wins the governorship of New Jersey, of course. She won against running against Jack Ciattarelli, who embraced Trump. So that was interesting. The polls showed this to be a much tighter race, but in fact, she won by, I think, like 13 points or something. So it was ultimately not a tight race, which I thought was just interesting. Abigail Spanberger won Virginia's governorship, making her the first female governor there. And they were once roommates, by the way, Sherrill and Spanberger, which I think is just a fun fact. And she is also a moderate. Now, what does that say about the Trump brand right now in Virginia,
toxic.
which is often brand, considered a bellwether state?
Look, the brand is toxic. The shutdown was also very detrimental to Republican candidates. But the biggest issue, if you're a Republican, if you're looking at sort of what's the takeaway from this, is you have an uphill battle if one particular name is not on that ballot. And that particular name is never going to be on that ballot again, legally. Yeah. Legally speaking. Constitutionally speaking, this is it for riding those coattails, and you have to stand on policy. Their policies are massively unpopular. Turns out people don't like the feds coming into their state and rounding up people. People don't like masked feds coming into their state and rounding up people.
I guess they don't.
They don't like benefits being taken away. And you know what? Republicans have done a very good job of actually helping the Democratic brand, because the very popular programs that have been negatively impacted by the shutdown, Republicans have branded them as Democratic programs.
Right.
So the Republicans are out there saying like, yeah, we're going to take away all your Democratic programs. Well, it turns out a Democratic program like SNAP, people like that and need that and want that. So thank you, Republicans, for very overtly saying like that you are shutting down these very popular programs that are Democratic programs. So thanks for that little boost.
Yeah, a little branding push. Okay, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. And we are back. And Benari, you mentioned the shutdown. I just want to point out that today, Wednesday, November 5th, makes this the longest shutdown in the history of shutdowns. Pew, 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 pew. We did it.
And by it, failed to govern.
One of the things that I thought was really fun about Virginia. Now, Virginia was not a tight race. It never was a tight race. But what was really fun about it was one of the things that made it so not a tight race was that Trump cut so many jobs in Northern Virginia, especially, in places like Langley, where the CIA is headquartered, that there were just all these jobless
known left-wing radicals, the CIA.
There are all these jobless people out there being like, why am I jobless? Oh, Trump cut my job. I live in Virginia. I shall now vote for Abigail Spanberger. So that was just, it's a little bit, you must count on the chickens coming home to roost.
Yeah. Look,
with every political calculation.
I think that one of the reasons that that voters are feeling a little more enthusiastic today is because I think you're seeing like you don't normally get to see electoral repercussions so quickly.
Yeah.
In the past, I think that the policies have been very divorced from whatever elections occur. But because we're in the middle of a shutdown, because we're seeing a lot of chaos happening, a lot of failure to govern, to help people, inflation is still rising. We have tariff policies that people disagree with. We have jobs programs that people disagree with. We have a lot of uncertainty. And this is the first election that people can just say, I'm going to vote for people that are going to do the opposite of this thing. And we're rejecting what's happening now. And then you can see it in real time being like, oh, a lot of people feel this way too. This is kind of what an electoral mandate looks like. When you can call statewide races at half an hour after the polls close, that's a definitive win. These weren't nail biters. And by the way, Democrats are sweeping the board on local levels as well, on city council boards, on local school boards, on a lot of things that, Republicans had taken over starting in about 2016, 2018. They've snapped back to Democratic victories.
Also,
yesterday.
in Pennsylvania, there was a judge, like a Supreme Court judge voting thing. It was about it was like a strange name, but it's something like extend these judges for another 10 years vote, whatever it's called. And there were 3 Democratic judges that took their seats in 2015, and those all 3 of them were extended. So that's another sign of this little off-year sweep. I wanted to also mention one more thing that I think is really fun. The lieutenant governor's race in Virginia went to Democrat Ghazala Hashmi. She became the first Muslim candidate elected to statewide office anywhere in the country. Again, Benari, I don't vote for people because they're Muslim. That's never been my thing. I vote for people because I think they would make good candidates for everybody. And it's I'm not a single issue voter. Also, I've never had the luxury of voting for Muslims before yesterday. Now, but I just have to say, it's just fun for me, though. I can't just go ahead and say that I do think it's fun, like Muslims. I mean, we're kind of delightful.
Representation matters. And
I didn't want to say I'm not even saying representation matters. I've lived my whole life without representation and I've done okay, right? I'm just saying it's just fun. That's all I'm saying right now. And and it's a sign of the times. Then maybe we can fucking move beyond,
well,
know?
it's also just a sign of flexing your political muscle when you can run many different types of candidates from many different backgrounds who look very different from each other, and they can all achieve victory in different ways. And so it is a rejection of this flattening of the sort of candidate pool. Right?
And I think
this is an expansion of the candidate pool. This is saying that we can be successful with a diverse candidate pool.
And it goes back to the coalition point we were making earlier, which is to say New York City is known as having the largest Jewish population, outside of Israel, in the United States at least. And it is also the largest Muslim population, but it's largely been a forgotten, completely ignored demographic politically,
Yes.
And so it's like, well, there's other groups that we could be courting, you know what I mean? And there's other people that with political power who matter, who make a difference in this city, who are, and I think the same goes for this lieutenant governorship win in Virginia. Now let's talk quickly about California. California won its Prop 50 vote to redraw the maps. So that we have, another tool to fight against the redrawing that might be happening in Texas. Were you surprised by that win?
No, because there's a big push to do something. Look, people want their elected leaders to fight for them. That's why they elected them. So what this, a lot of Republicans in these states they just redrew the maps. Whether they could or they could not, whether the people wanted it, they didn't care. They're redrawing the maps. And what California did was they put it to the people to show their work, saying we have a mandate. The people want this. We're not just redrawing maps to redraw maps. We're not engaging in gerrymandering. You guys fired the first shot. We, as California, can do something about this. The people of California want us to do this, and this is what we're going to do. And so that's sort of one major difference here with the redistricting that's happening in California and what that victory means. The mandate from the people of California demand that they engage in this redistricting fight.
That's right. And and it's funny because it was like, for a second, I was like, this is like a wonky thing we're asking people to turn out to vote for. Mm-hmm. I wondered if it was like, a little too in the weeds for people. I just had my little concerns, but I am happy to see.
But I think it is. I think the specifics of it are in the weeds. But I think what the attitude is this is a way in which we can fight what's happening. Do you want to be part of this? And people are like, yes, do whatever it takes to fight back, to push back against this.
Right.
Look, people don't like leaders who just roll over.
No,
and so they want to know that their elected officials are doing anything, using every leverage of power at their disposal while they have it.
Yeah.
And so they want these levers of power pulled.
And finally, let's just go ahead and talk about, you mentioned, you referenced this a little bit, but let's talk a little bit about what this could portend for 2026. What might the Republicans glean from these off-year elections in terms of what they're doing? Because my feeling is they have very little movement ability because Trump dictates so much of what they can do or not do. Unless they embrace him, he threatens a primary challenge. My feeling, if I'm a Republican, and I'm not trying to give a lot of guidance to Republicans here. But if I'm a Republican, I'm thinking, let him primary challenge me. Like, his power is so limited. And why are we in a midterm election, in an off-year election, which I think also means a midterm election? Why should we follow the narrow strictures of what he's allowing us to say and do?
That's just a great question because it's not working for them. It hasn't worked for them. And the one thing we should be worried about is why don't they care?
Right.
That's really the question I would ask. Because if we were being honest, there should be some reflection and soul searching here going on by Republican strategists, by, I don't know, the political journalism ecosphere that has been talking about how strong Republican supermajorities are and how untouchable they are. And this really shows that they're not untouchable, that people are coming out in waves to reject authoritarianism and fascism and any drive towards clamping down and limiting rights and limiting states' powers to accomplish things in their own local communities. People want the freedom to be able to live in a state that decides how their citizens live. And you're seeing a lot of federal overreach, and you're really not seeing them reflecting on how this is hurting them electorally and in the long run. And so I just ask, like, why? Why are you doing this? Unless you're not concerned about elections in the future. That's the only thing I'm left with is like, well, it's proving that you can't win elections doing this. So now do we have to be concerned with whatever the next phase is? So I think it's very exciting. But if we're Democrats, let's keep the energy up. If you're talking to what can Democrats do to build on this, first, they need to deliver.
Yep.
But two, they need to continue building on these coalitions and accept the big tent, accept the idea that we don't have to agree on how we get everything done, but we have that Democrats need to have that singular focus on what needs to get done and what needs to be delivered for their constituents and what they need to deliver for the people, and let them know that they're in this fight. That the old ways of just, go along to get along isn't going to cut it in these times.
Yeah. Okay. That's a great final note to end on. I'm so excited that we got to do a little debrief because, it's morning, and the first thing I did as I woke up this morning was text Benari. So
normally when we do these after action reviews, it's a what the fuck just happened text.
I know.
We need to talk about this. So it's nice. It's nice to see the joy, and it's nice to see. Look, we'll take any sliver of hope and optimism we can get. I think last night was a huge chunk of it.
Yes!
And I think that people should be energized and just keep that moving forward. Don't let them make you snatch defeat from victory. Keep the victories going.
Keep the victories going. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Benari Lee Poulton, where do people find you?
They can find me, wherever Benari Lee Poultons are sold. I'm on Instagram at Benari Lee, the blue skies and all that at Benari Lee.
Follow him, guys. He's so wonderful, and he always has terrific insight, and he's so funny. And also, you can follow me wherever the things, all the things, And I want to thank Rob Heath, our wonderful producer, for also stepping in to do this extra bit of bonus work. And also, I want to remind listeners that they can email us at fakethenationpodcast@gmail.com. You can support us at patreon.com/Negin Farsad. And otherwise, we'll be back in your earballs next week.